Chapter 1. My wife fell in love with the assistant I'd personally trained. She insisted on a divorce, even defying her parents and holding a press conference herself to announce the end of our marriage. My mother fainted from anger, my father's face flushed red. Overnight, I became an object of ridicule for everyone. What no one knew was that, on that very day, my family withdrew all support previously extended to her family. My father, holding a chess piece, said, "Shift operations overseas. Wait a few years until things quiet down, then come back in style." My mother fanned herself. "A pawn is lost, just replace it. Let her have her younger man, you go find yourself a young trophy wife." I raised an eyebrow. Night has fallen. It's time for the Ashford business to wither. The day I returned after completing my studies abroad, I threw a grand banquet at home. Almost everyone in our circle came, including my ex-wife and her current husband. The banquet hall buzzed with voices as I moved among figures usually seen only in major financial reports, exchanging pleasantries and laughs. Having been abroad for 5 years, I had not only resolved the Clark family's public relations crisis from back then, but had also expanded our business empire internationally, creating my own legend in the process. Everyone knew the Clarks now held absolute power, and I had ascended to become someone everyone sought to curry favor with, sincere. A burning gaze lingered on me. Victoria Ashford lowered her head in chagrin while Julian Croft beside her squeezed her arm hard, seemingly reprimanding her for her lapse. I set down my wine glass. The crowd parted, creating a path, leaving Victoria and me facing each other from a distance. If everyone knew Sincere Clark had built his kingdom through his own efforts, then Victoria Ashford was the greatest catalyst. Were it not for her infidelity during our marriage and her swift abandonment of me, I wouldn't be where I am today. Did Mr. Clark really invite that terrible woman? Seems unlikely. By rights, the Ashfords dropped off the list of prominent families long ago, leaving Victoria struggling to keep things afloat. No matter how charitable Mr. Clark might be, he should pretend he doesn't know her. Who knows? Maybe he invited her to this kind of banquet just to humiliate her. Look around, everyone's staring at her with contempt. The surrounding chatter was undisguised. Victoria's face paled, her lips moved, but no words came out. "All right, all who come are guests. I hope Ms. Ashford and Mr. Croft have a pleasant evening." I raised my glass towards Victoria, stopping the absurd onslaught. Those with varying motives immediately tried to smooth things over. They were all business people. The preceding display was merely them testing me, seeing if I would kick Victoria while she was down. So those seeking opportunities could align themselves accordingly. It was clear I had no intention of making things difficult for Victoria, which made her let out a long sigh, her gaze towards me growing more intense. Julian Croft, naturally, wasn't pleased. As Victoria's current husband, he had managed to snatch her away from me. How could he now stand being overshadowed by me? So, full of himself, he walked over to me, flaunting a flashy watch. "What's the use of a great career for a man? It's better to find a soulmate. I'd say, Sincere, you're just too domineering. That's why after being abandoned." "Ah, my mistake." Feigning a slip-up, Julian covered his mouth, glancing at me apologetically. "It should be, after leaving Victoria, you couldn't find a suitable woman. The most important thing for a man is a supportive partner who understands him. I think, Sincere, you should lower your standards a bit. Then maybe someone would want you." The blindingly luxurious watch reflected light into my eyes. I swirled the wine in my glass. My business associate beside me stopped laughing and gave Julian a cold look. In the business world, ability is what everyone values, not gender or who stands behind you. They wouldn't even deign to give a kept man like Julian Croft a second glance, instead directing their attack towards Victoria. "Ms. Ashford certainly keeps a tight rein. Even if you couldn't find someone better after Mr. Clark, you didn't have to keep a dog like this barking nonsense. Or perhaps Ms. Ashford just has unique tastes. Since Miss Ashford's companion is so eager to perform, and she arrived late, why not have him put on a show to liven things up? The barbs came one after another. Victoria's face stiffened, cold sweat beading on her forehead. The Ashford family was a shadow of its former self, and Julian was merely a former assistant who had risen through the ranks, lacking any powerful backing. So, even as they were being insulted, causing them public embarrassment, Victoria didn't dare make a sound. All right, on such a happy occasion, why is everyone staring at Miss Ashford's husband? Why bother with an ignorant man? Chapter 2. I stepped in to help Victoria out again at the right moment. Julian only heard "on's ignorant man," and still wanted to argue, but Victoria pulled him away with a cold expression. As they passed, I caught Victoria's grateful glance. She seemed surprised that I would help her after she and my assistant had both betrayed me. Even the banquet guests praised my magnanimity. Anyone else, they reasoned, would never have been capable of such grace. What's past is past. If you hold on to every little thing, life becomes too tiring. Everyone, please continue enjoying yourselves. After apologizing individually to those involved, I left the lively banquet hall and lit a cigarette in a quiet corner. A delicate white hand took the cigarette from me. I recognized the familiar lemon scent and frowned instinctively. Didn't you quit smoking long ago? When did you pick up the habit again? And, thank you. Victoria took a drag from the cigarette she'd taken from me. I looked into the distance and sighed. You're not well, you should smoke less. I only do it for work, I explained my earlier words. A breeze carried the scent of lemon from strands of hair blowing across Victoria's face. She seemed lost in thought. During our 2 years of marriage, Victoria often suffered from stomach aches and sore throats due to frequent business socializing. At its worst, she would cough up blood specks night after night. To alleviate the burden that alcohol and tobacco placed on her, I prepared different varieties of stewed pears and health tonics for her daily. No matter how busy I was with work, I never missed a day. Victoria clearly remembered this, her face filled with nostalgia. After all these years, do you still hate me? She was asking about the fact that despite all my efforts, she had cheated on me with my assistant. I turned my head to meet Victoria's gaze, a faint smile playing on my lips. What's there to hate? Everyone has the right to make their own choices. It's better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Faced with my attitude of letting bygones be bygones, Victoria nodded. Spoken like the true Mr. Clark. Such perspective. She meant it teasingly. I shook my head. Hardly. Just luck. Once the conversation started, Victoria and I talked about many things. The situation over the past 5 years, developments, and the bickering between our parents. Since the divorce, the Ashfords and the Clarks had been at loggerheads. Whichever project one family eyed, the other would invariably compete for it. Initially, even if the Ashfords didn't have the upper hand, they could hold their own. But with my rise, many began to turn against the Ashfords, and they fell dramatically. So today, 5 years later, Victoria had to swallow her pride and appear at my banquet. She no longer wanted to be my enemy. Besides, so much time had passed, surely there was room for reconciliation. Fortunately, I truly didn't seem to hold a grudge. Having achieved her desired outcome, Victoria relaxed completely and chatted about many amusing anecdotes. She tactfully avoided mentioning Julian Croft, and naturally I didn't ask. The long, tedious time passed. When it ended, Victoria still seemed somewhat reluctant to stop talking. Her gaze remained fixed on me as she asked, "Shall we go somewhere else for a bit?" I shook my head, refusing. Reminiscing is one thing, Miss Ashford, but don't forget your current status. I'd rather not see the tragedy of the past repeat itself. Victoria couldn't see the trembling, furious man hidden in the shadows, but from my angle I could see him perfectly. Forgive me, I overstepped. Chapter 3. After parting with Victoria, I walked past the spot where Julian Croft had been hiding. I mused silently that the days ahead would surely be quite dramatic. As I expected, Victoria added me back as a contact that night. She would brazenly ask how I made the stewed pears taste so good. When her stomach hurt, she'd sigh about how nice it would be to have someone take care of her. I replied meticulously to her messages and even sent her the collection of remedies I had once compiled for her. It detailed, down to the last particular, how to care for her when she felt unwell. Victoria ostensibly said it was troublesome, but her words were laced with apologies for the past. Over time, Victoria would lavish praise on my social media posts, even news articles and financial reports featuring me. Although she intended to signal that the Ashfords and Clarks were no longer mortal enemies, these somewhat ambiguous comments still infuriated Julian Croft. One morning, Julian sent me a friend request. After I accepted, he immediately checked my social media feed. Every visible post had a trace of Victoria. Remember to eat breakfast on time. The stomach is fundamental. Is this the new project you recently invested in? Looks promising. I'll have to follow Mr. Clark's lead and make some money. Hard to imagine this was you years ago, that flustered little boy facing trouble. Now you stand entirely on your own. Julian angrily fired off several messages, accusing me of seducing a married woman, questioning how I got rich, perhaps through despicable means. I didn't open the chat window. Instead, I sent Victoria a message. I'm sorry, I hope Ms. Ashford can maintain some distance from me in the future. After sending it, I put down my phone and attended to my work. Hours later, as soon as I picked up my phone, Victoria's call came through. Her voice was low as she first sincerely apologized to me. Seeing that I genuinely didn't mind, she began to complain about Julian's changes. Initially, he truly was my confidant, gentle and understanding. Who knew that just a few years into marriage he'd become so suspicious, even distrusting my business partners? Last time he even stormed into someone's house and hit their husband. Sincere, I'm really exhausted, Victoria complained at length. I listened quietly until she finished. Only when the other end fell silent did I pause the video I was watching and chime in. Marriage is a process of mutual adjustment. Perhaps you should consider if there's something you haven't done well enough. Haven't given your husband enough security? Victoria, work is important, but so is family. I gently played the role of her confidant, offering the most reasonable advice. Victoria sighed. Before she could speak, I heard Julian's furious outburst from her end. Victoria Ashford, is this what you call working? Actually talking to him on the phone. Do you have any respect for me? I'm your husband for you. I betrayed Sincere Clark. We betrayed him. Do you really think he can just let it go without resentment? Wake up. Victoria Sincere is doing this deliberately. He wants revenge on me and on you. Julian's hysterical rant echoed. Victoria muttered an apology and hung up. Indifferently, I opened my tablet and continued browsing videos. An hour later, the phone rang again. As soon as I answered, Victoria spoke wearily. I'm sorry, Sincere, for always dragging you into this. I deliberated internally for a few seconds. Since I should be the one apologizing. Our past makes our position sensitive. It's natural for Julian to misunderstand. Chapter 4. One person's understanding often highlights another's complete distortion. He just never knows contentment. I've treated him so well all these years, what more does he want? Victoria rambled on for quite some time before finally ending the call. I toyed with my phone, once again contemplating the nature of love. Back when Victoria just divorced me, she eagerly brought Julian Croft home. They knelt together at the Ashford family gate, swearing they were true loves, threatening to kneel there until death if Richard and Margaret Ashford didn't approve. Perhaps love moved the heavens. Victoria knelt at the gate for 2 days, and it rained for 2 days. Blood from her scraped knees mingled with the rainwater. Julian, pale-faced, leaned against Victoria. Margaret Ashford, heartbroken for her daughter, reluctantly agreed to the marriage, creating a celebrated story in high society circles. At the time, who didn't call them true loves? But when two people who fought the world together no longer have an opponent, they naturally become each other's greatest enemy. She couldn't stand his changes. He couldn't accept his once gentle lover turning into a shrew. Fairy tales end perfectly with marriage, but marriage is where the real test begins. After the marriage, everyone in the Ashford family looked down on Julian Croft. They looked down on his job and his background. Victoria repeatedly used her mother's approval of the marriage to pressure him, forcing him to give up his dreams and career to become a house husband. In upper-class circles, having maids attend to daily needs is certainly comfortable. But at every banquet, Julian received only cold stares and ridicule. Publicly, they offered compliments. Privately, they cursed him for sleeping his way up, calling him unfit for polite society. Initially, Victoria would comfort him. As time went on, she only blamed him for not knowing how to conduct himself, unable to handle even such small matters. They were like two cornered beasts, constantly prodding each other with their sharp edges. Human nature, it seems, is just like that. Aaron, come in for a moment. I was calling my other assistant, Aaron Foster. He and Julian were university classmates, once friends. Over the years, because their paths diverged, Aaron remained loyal by my side. Sister Clark, here's the coffee you asked for and the files you requested. What did you need me for? In the office, Aaron and I always maintained a professional distance. I glanced at the documents in my hand. They were from the private investigator. Over the years, Julian and Victoria's relationship had deteriorated. Bored with affluent life and seeking thrills, Julian repeatedly disguised himself to visit nightclubs and consort with female models. The private investigator had captured plenty of photos. In the dim light, Julian reveled, surrounded by several scantily clad women, a look of sheer enjoyment on his face. Some of the photos were quite explicit. Aaron, seeing them nearby, couldn't help his ears turning red. I tapped the desk. Once you handle this, by the way, come over for dinner tonight. That was why I called Aaron in. In my home, he was treated like half a son. Understood, Mr. Clark. Aaron gave me a slight smile and left with the documents. The phone rang. I glanced at it. It was a message from Victoria. These past few days, she had sent me many long messages and invitations. I hadn't accepted any, as if my initial warmth had suddenly cooled. Victoria seemed alarmed. She started appearing frequently where I worked, even contacting Aaron just to see me. Chapter 5. Aaron refused to reveal much, only giving a hotel location. Victoria hesitated for a long time before reluctantly heading there. She interpreted it as Aaron's hint. Only upon arrival did she realize I was standing at the hotel entrance, while the man blissfully leaning against another woman at the front desk was none other than her husband. Bastard. Victoria felt like she was practically radiating fury, wanting to rush forward and beat Julian. I grabbed her wrist and, before Julian noticed, led her to a coffee shop. Why did you stop me? I wanted to kill that bastard. Everything he has I gave him. Victoria's face was contorted with rage. I sighed, glancing at the curious onlookers. The Ashford family is already precarious. If you cause a public scene arguing with Julian now, do you really want to destroy everything the Ashfords have left? Hearing my reminder, Victoria took several deep breaths, forcing herself to calm down. Once her head cleared, she finally realized how foolish she had almost been. Thank you, Sincere. It's thanks to you. She politely thanked me. I shook my head, placed the investigation materials before her, and gestured apologetically. I should be the one saying sorry. I originally intended to handle this myself. I didn't expect you to see it. This demeanor, like someone cleaning up messes for a loved one, brought a touch of warmth to the already heartbroken Victoria. The fist resting on the table clenched slightly. Thank you, Sincere. Please believe me, I can handle my own affairs. Victoria left. It wasn't hard to tell from her expression that a major drama was about to unfold at the Ashford home tonight. The private investigator Aaron had hired was already waiting outside. The next day, Tashford's son-in-law cheats with multiple models hit the headlines. The Ashford family suffered a heavy blow. Richard Ashford, known for doting on his daughter, slapped Victoria hard across the face in front of reporters. Is this the wonderful husband you found? Satisfied now that he's made you a laughingstock with all his affairs? I'm telling you, you have two choices now: divorce him, or I disown you as my daughter. Regardless of how Margaret Ashford cried and pleaded, the Ashford family's doors were no longer open to Victoria. Unable to return home, betrayed by her husband, the publicly humiliated Victoria called me. Her voice was low. "Sincere, can you have a drink with me?" Feeling abandoned by the world, Victoria clung to me as her last lifeline. I nodded and drove to where Victoria was. She had drunk a lot. The strong smell of alcohol hit me as soon as I approached. "You're here. Is my life a complete failure? Tossing aside a pearl like you to pick up such a worthless sesame seed?" Seeing me, Victoria swirled the glass in her hand, her eyes red as she recounted everything she had lost. I ordered a low-alcohol cocktail and sat beside her. "Victoria, you're drunk. Whatever Julian did, he is still your husband. If you have grievances, talk to him clearly. Don't go out getting drunk. And told you, I don't want you to go through another divorce. Our marriage already failed, understand?" I lowered my head, looking somewhat saddened. Victoria froze, staring blankly at me. We were childhood sweethearts, destined by a childhood engagement. She had once genuinely liked me. "Sincere, if Julian and I separate, is there any chance for us to get back together? Would you forgive me?" Under the influence of alcohol, desire sparked within Victoria. She wanted to reconcile with me, or perhaps she simply remembered my good qualities. Chapter 6. You've had too much to drink. I coldly grabbed my coat, about to leave. Victoria followed me, her mind racing. Outside the bar, the cool air sobered Victoria slightly. She rushed forward to grab me, lowering her head guiltily. "I'm sorry, Sincere. I know I shouldn't have said those things. Please don't be angry." She begged for my forgiveness in a low voice. I responded with a stern face. "Victoria, I'm not the type to be the other man. I would never destroy your family with Julian. I came out tonight because I consider you a friend. Now it seems you don't think the same way." Faced with my accusation, Victoria was too ashamed to lift her head. She slapped herself hard across the face several times until her cheeks swelled before daring to speak. "Can you forgive me now? I just had too much to drink earlier. As an apology, can I treat you to barbecue?" Time ticked by. Under Victoria's watchful gaze, I reluctantly nodded. Arriving at the familiar barbecue shop, I paused for a rare moment. The owner, however, was particularly enthusiastic, calling out loudly, "Hey, Victoria's here. You and your childhood buddy haven't been around in ages. So many years have passed. You must be married with kids by now, right?" The owner peered behind me. Victoria scratched her head, embarrassed. I smiled and interjected, "Owner, Victoria is married, yes, but you'll have to ask her husband about kids." "I'm not married." I casually sat down. The owner paused for a second, then dropped the subject. Back in high school, Victoria and I often came here to eat. Many times she had sworn to the owner that she would only marry me when she grew up. Only me. Alas, times change. Everything changed. "Why did you think of coming to this place?" I asked, pretending to be casual. Victoria touched the familiar table and chairs, pointing to a photo on the wall. "Look there, there's even a picture of us Sincere. You were completely different back then. You used to hang around with those little thugs, always getting into fights. Several times I followed you and saw you hiding and crying afterwards. I never expected that the little boy nobody thought much of back then would soar so high." Victoria's tone was full of nostalgia. I put down my phone and spoke frankly. "The naughtiest one in class back then was you, Miss Ashford. I actually hated fighting. I was afraid of pain. But you liked it. Back then, I just wanted to catch your eye. I never thought that lie would last so many years. I was just afraid you'd look down on me." As the truth was revealed, the skewer in Victoria's hand dropped. She murmured, I never knew you had such a cute side. I masked my awkwardness with a smile and pushed the grilling pan towards her. Teenage antics aren't worth mentioning. It's all in the past. Let's eat and go home. Perhaps the topic was sensitive. Victoria and I ate in silence for a long time. Not until I got into my car did she press down on my door. Sincere, did you ever like Felicity Payne? That was a senior from university. After graduating, due to her exceptional abilities, she had stayed on working for the Clark family. She was also something of a thorn in Victoria's side regarding me, because back in university I did admire Felicity Payne, and several times I had even ditched Victoria for her invitations. It was around then that cracks began to appear in my relationship with Victoria. Chapter 7. I remembered when I first caught her with Julian. Victoria had also confronted me about Felicity. She had said, "Sincere Clark, what right do you have to control me? Search your heart. Are you and Felicity completely innocent?" I was angry then and didn't think deeply about her words, nor did I answer. Years later, Victoria asked again. I lowered my gaze. Victoria Ashford, from childhood till now, I've only ever loved one person. Her name is Victoria Ashford, and when we were young, I loved protecting the Victoria Ashford I kept behind me, the one for whom I would have tried to pluck the stars from the sky if she asked. Growing up, I also loved the Victoria Ashford who was sincere to her friends, who was utterly devoted to me. No matter what we've become, that cannot be changed. My voice choked slightly. Victoria's eyes reddened, standing dazed by the roadside. She was wrong, terribly wrong. It was she who destroyed our marriage, destroyed the happy life we should have had. I'm sorry, Sincere. Victoria practically fled in disarray. Once her figure vanished, I coldly wiped my hands with a tissue and sent Victoria a message. I've been happy these past few days. It felt like returning to the past. Victoria Ashford, we can't continue making mistakes. So, let's not contact each other anymore. As I typed, my face was impassive. What Victoria saw, however, was a man forsaking his love, causing her such pain she cried several times upon reading it. When she tried to reply, Victoria saw only a red exclamation mark. I had deleted her, ostensibly because I didn't want to hurt Julian. The unattainable ideal remains the unattainable ideal. He stands on high ground, refusing to mix with the sullied mire. The wind howled outside. I couldn't hide my good mood, awaiting Victoria's correct decision. Back home, my father, updated on the progress, pushed a chess piece forward on the board, smiling as he spoke. Checkmate is near. See, even a pawn you look down on can deliver an unexpected blow. My mother tapped his head lightly and handed him a cup of tea. You're speaking more profoundly these days. But it's a good game. The day to close the net is near. Laughter filled the house. I took off my coat, shaking my head helplessly. Oh, Dad, Mom, don't celebrate too soon. My mother shot me a disapproving glance and brought out the ginseng soup she had prepared earlier from the kitchen. Our Sincere has worked so hard lately, having to act and deal with those old geezers at the company. Your father should be the one going out to work. My mother was always nagging, but I gleaned a lot of information from her updates, like how Richard Ashford and Julian Croft got into a huge fight, making such a scene that the police were called, and how Margaret Ashford felt so ashamed she stopped attending her usual tea parties. But that didn't stop gossip mongers from visiting their home to inquire. From these inquiries, Julian's reputation was utterly ruined. Margaret already disliked her son-in-law. Now that he had committed such scandalous acts, she naturally contributed to the slander. Rumors began to circulate in their social circle that Julian had contracted an incurable disease. Richard Ashford heard about it while fishing and fell into the pond out of sheer anger. After being rescued, he repeatedly demanded that Victoria divorce Julian immediately. Who knew at this critical juncture, Victoria discovered she was pregnant. The story took quite a turn. Even my father, engrossed in his chess game, couldn't help but applaud and sigh. Quite the drama unfolding. Although my mother didn't speak, her expression clearly showed she was also reveling in their misfortune. I thought back to the family meeting before I went abroad. Half of what was planned had come true. Only the final step remained. Chapter 8. A few days later, rumors that the sole heir of the Clark family, Sincere Clark and Felicity Payne, had decided to marry spread throughout their circle. Reporters even published photos of Felicity and me entering and leaving various places together, with many shots taken near the Clark family residence. Victoria panicked. She kept trying to subtly ask me about it, even managing to get Felicity's contact information from someone. After adding Felicity as a contact, before Victoria could even ask her question, Felicity updated her social media feed. It was a photo taken from behind, with Felicity stating that good news was imminent, though she didn't explicitly say who the good news involved. The comments underneath were uniformly congratulating her and wishing me happiness with her. Felicity didn't clarify. Unsure of the truth, Victoria used work as a pretext to ask me out. At the coffee shop, I sat on the sofa, waiting for Victoria to speak. She hesitated for a long time before bringing it up awkwardly. "I heard you and Felicity are getting close to marriage. Congratulations. But didn't you say?" She swallowed the rest of her words. I sighed helplessly, feigning annoyance. What can I do? Now that the Clark family is doing well again, many families want to arrange marriages with me. I figured Felicity is someone I know well, and she's at a marriageable age. Might as well just settle down. It's a second marriage for me, after all. Not everyone is as lucky as you, managing to find their true love. Victoria looked like she wanted to say more, but hesitated. I smiled and changed the subject. "How are you? I heard you're pregnant. This counts as your first child together. No matter how absurd, messy things are, the child can't be ignored." "Victoria, if you called me out today just for this trivial matter, then my office won't be taking your calls anymore." I dropped my smile, making a motion to leave. Victoria stood up hastily. "No, that's not it. I was just feeling down for a moment and didn't know who to talk to. Sincere, please, I'm begging you. Talk with me a little longer. The baby. I don't want to keep it. I want to have an abortion." Victoria revealed this defeatedly. I sneered inwardly. From the moment this happened until now, Victoria hadn't discussed it with Julian. Even though she could clearly afford to raise this child, she was casually considering discarding a life. So many years had passed, but her habit of prioritizing her own benefit and avoiding harm was still well maintained. "Victoria, Julian is your partner. Although he made some mistakes, it doesn't mean everything between you was wrong. Now, you're carrying his child. You can't decide the fate of a life, that's too selfish. And besides, I don't believe Julian would betray you." I sat back down, persuading her earnestly with a concerned tone. Victoria's face darkened. "What isn't he capable of doing? Wasn't he the one who seduced me in the first place? Sincere, you trusted him too much. That's why you were betrayed. He's fundamentally a bastard, can't live without women. Let me tell you, he's not like you. I will absolutely not keep this child." Victoria's words grew harsher. I glanced up, looking just past her shoulder towards the back. It seemed this supposedly all-knowing Ms. Ashford didn't know Julian had someone following her. But she would soon find out. I looked forward to seeing how Julian would react upon hearing his beloved insult him like this from her own mouth, and what kind of earth-shattering things he might do. Busy days always pass quickly. The next news I heard about Julian Croft came on the day Victoria had scheduled their divorce. Julian had initially agreed readily. Victoria had even hosted a banquet for the occasion, specifically inviting me, presumably to let me know she was officially single again. Chapter 9. To everyone's surprise, when it came time to finalize the divorce papers, Julian Croft didn't show up. Instead, he appeared at the banquet Victoria was hosting. Impeccably dressed in a suit, holding a bouquet of flowers, he walked step by step into the main hall and stopped right in front of me. I maintained my smile throughout. Julian glared at me with pure resentment. Sincere Clark, don't think you've won. If I could snatch Victoria Ashford from your side back then, I won't just hand her back now. Let me tell you, you'll never win. After saying this, he looked haughtily towards the hastily arrived Victoria and her pale-faced parents, Richard and Margaret Ashford. Back then, the Ashford family, in order to swallow. He began to speak slowly. Victoria, reacting quickly, clapped a hand over his mouth, bowing fearfully to the surrounding guests. Julian shot me a triumphant glance, then whispered something in Victoria's ear. I don't know what he said, but Victoria's demeanor changed completely. Gritting her teeth, she walked onto the small stage and raised the microphone. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend this Ashford family banquet. Today's gathering is actually to celebrate my pregnancy. The Ashford family will soon welcome a new bloodline, and of course, it's also to dispel the rumors that my husband and I are divorcing. The crowd below erupted in murmurs. Everyone knew that just that morning, Victoria had been waiting at the registry office for Julian to finalize the divorce. Witnessing this sudden reversal, people began speculating wildly about what might have happened. And lose again, Sincere Clark. Julian, the self-proclaimed victor, raised his wineglass towards me with a smirk. I simply shook my head, finding his desperate tactic of clinging onto a woman utterly laughable. Most importantly, at a business banquet like this, the real victor is always determined by those holding power. Mr. Croft, one of my associates, scoffed. Instead of standing here mocking Mr. Clark's supposed loss, perhaps you should spend your time trying to get those photos taken down. You had the audacity to do it. I'm embarrassed just looking at them. Another chimed in, a mere buffoon, thinking he can challenge Mr. Clark just because he climbed up from nowhere by attaching himself to this position. You should take a look at who you're standing before. Even your father-in-law has to respectfully address him as Mr. Clark. What are you, someone completely dependent on the Ashford family for your livelihood? Do you really think you're secure just because of that child in Miss Ashford's belly? Mr. Croft, let me offer you a piece of advice. You can cheat, and Miss Ashford can too. After all, that seems to be her specialty, otherwise you wouldn't be here in the first place. The people gathered around me let out scornful laughs. Julian's hand trembled as he flung the wine from his glass. This impulsive action was tantamount to pushing the Ashford family towards utter ruin. After all, I happened to be standing right in the middle of the influential figures the Ashfords absolutely could not afford to offend. Julian hadn't controlled his aim well. Everyone nearby was splashed with red wine. I'm sorry. Victoria, snapping back to reality, quickly started apologizing. She looked pitifully towards me, clearly hoping I would say something to defuse the situation. Instead, I turned my gaze towards Richard and Margaret Ashford, who were trying to hide in a corner. With the chess game having reached this stage, I no longer felt obligated to play along. Why are you looking at Mr. Clark? One of the offended guests snapped at Victoria. The Ashford family certainly has fine manners, inviting us all to a banquet just so your pretty boy can insult us like this. If the Ashford family doesn't want to do business with us anymore, Ms. Ashford could have just said so directly. Why drag us all here just to deliberately humiliate us and make everything so unpleasant? Under Victoria's increasingly desperate gaze, my lips parted slightly, delivering the words that would send her straight to hell. Mr. Croft, if you have personal issues with me, you can direct them straight at me. The Ashford and Clark families were already irreconcilable enemies anyway. Why bother with this extra unnecessary charade? With my declaration, any remaining support for Victoria evaporated. In just those few short minutes, the fate of the Ashford family was irrevocably sealed. Chapter 10 and Sincere. Victoria stared at me, her eyes blazing red. Richard and Margaret Ashford strode furiously over to Julian and began physically attacking him. Don't listen to Victoria's nonsense, Richard Ashford yelled to the crowd. This man has long ceased to be my Ashford family's son-in-law, any vile spawn carrying his bloodline. The Ashford family will definitely get rid of, and my daughter is divorcing this shameless man today," Margaret Ashford added frantically. "So whatever wrongs he has committed have nothing to do with the Ashford family. If you must blame someone, blame this bastard. This has nothing to do with us." "That's right, Sincere." Margaret turned to me, desperately playing the familiarity card. "It was him who seduced Victoria back then, causing the tragedy between you two. Now that Victoria doesn't want him anymore, please, just be magnanimous and spare the Ashford family this one time." "Yes, Sincere. Aunt Margaret always doted on you most when you were little," she pleaded. Hearing these disgusting, hypocritical words, I slammed the glass I was holding down onto a nearby table, shattering it. "Victoria Ashford," I said, my voice cold. "Still acting even at this stage? Did you really think the Clark family managed to survive back then, and the Ashford family declined so rapidly these past few years? Simply because you were too incompetent? No. It was because I already knew everything and launched my counterattack, though you are indeed incompetent. So, Victoria Ashford, it's time for this play to end." After the banquet, Ashford family stocks plummeted into oblivion. The Clark family, consolidating previously acquired shares along with support from other prominent families, directly absorbed the entirety of the Ashford enterprise. What Victoria Ashford had failed to achieve back then, I accomplished. On the day the final contracts were signed, officially rebranding the former Ashford assets under the Clark family name, Victoria intercepted me as I was leaving. "Did you ever love me?" She stubbornly, desperately sought an answer. I simply raised an eyebrow. Once. Once is a beautiful, yet distant word. Once I had helped Julian Croft, personally training and nurturing him, yet he betrayed me for the intoxicating allure of a woman's affections. Once I believed I possessed the most wonderful marriage imaginable, but that beauty was merely a facade wrapped in endless lies and deceit. Fortunately, the Clark family hadn't suffered irreparable damage. Everything that had happened in the past ultimately shaped the stronger, better version of me that stood here today. "Mr. Clark, Chairman Clark is calling for you to come home for dinner." As I walked out of the building, Aaron Foster smiled and waved at me. He had just returned from the police station. Julian Croft had been formally detained on suspicion of leaking confidential corporate secrets, the inevitable price of his insatiable greed. His comeuppance, one might say. I smiled and walked towards Aaron. On the way back home, he told me that Julian had relayed a message through him, directed at me. "Thank you." Aaron said Julian admitted he had lost, and that in the days to come he would start over, vowing not to stray onto the wrong path again. I offered no comment. The road of life presents countless choices. We cannot definitively decree certain choices as absolutely wrong. We can only strive not to live with regret.